Today, we'll take a look at some of the most significant weaknesses and design flaws in the human body, so we can laugh a little at all those aches and pains that truly make us human. Let's watch it. It's fascinating. Wisdom teeth. Oh, ouch. This one is definitely painful. I hope you've never had to deal with this particular vulnerability of the human body firsthand because it hurts a lot. Oddly enough, the human jaw is starting to evolve to be smaller and more delicate, which means that, although it sounds counterintuitive, humans are slowly developing too many teeth for their own good. Yes, we're talking about the infamous wisdom teeth, also known as the third molars, which are the last permanent teeth to appear in the mouth, usually between the ages of 17 and 25. It's called the Age of Wisdom, hence the name. This third pair of molars had a real purpose for early humans, specifically humans who lived before we started cooking food. For them, wisdom teeth was essential for chewing hard things like roots, bones, or even raw meat. But once we started using fire, the jaw significantly shrank in size, since cooked food was much softer and required less muscle strength to chew. You'd think that with the jaw shrinking, the number of teeth would decrease too, right? But here's the strange thing. The genes that control these two functions are completely different. So, a change in jaw size doesn't always correlate with the number of teeth. As a result, wisdom teeth often don't have enough room to fully emerge, which can cause them to become trapped beneath the gums or push against other teeth, leading to pain, infections, or damage to neighboring teeth. This unfortunate reality has led many dentists to extract wisdom teeth to prevent them from causing problems with the rest of the mouth. For many people, it's their first surgical procedure, making it almost a rite of passage from adolescence to adulthood. But at least in this area, there's some good news for the future. More and more people are being born without wisdom teeth, indicating that human mouths are slowly evolving to better fit our smaller jaws. Tell us in the comments, did you have to get your wisdom teeth removed? How was the experience? The blind spot. Humans have particularly advanced visual acuity for mammals. We can see more colors than most, and with enough detail to spot camouflaged animals, like snakes. But you'd be surprised to know that despite our sharp vision, humans have a massive visual disadvantage. It's just that we don't notice it. You see, every human eye has a blind spot where our eyes don't register any light and don't form any images. This happens in all functioning eyes. It's not unique to just a few people. Everyone has a blind spot. Don't believe me? Let's try an experiment. Look at this image. Focus on the cross and cover your left eye. Then move the screen closer or farther away. There's a distance where the dot will completely disappear, even though it's in your field of vision. That's your blind spot. The same thing happens if you cover your right eye, except you'll see the dot, but not the cross. Amazing, right? But why does this happen? Why is there a spot where our eyes just don't work? That doesn't seem like an adaptation that benefits anyone. So, what's going on here? Well, it all comes down to how our eyes are wired. At the back of the eye, in the retina, there's a small section in the center without any visual receptors. It's called the optic disc, and it's where the optic nerve connects to the eye. That's where the design flaw is. The nerve connects in front of the light receptors, leaving a spot where there can't be any receptors, and thus creating a blind spot. Now, the human brain automatically fills in this blind spot, so we don't usually notice it, but it certainly exists. What's more, this same design flaw is found in almost all vertebrates because when our ancestors evolved eyes, they had to reverse the position of the retina, causing this bad connection with the optic nerve. Interestingly, animals like octopuses don't have a blind spot because while their eyes function similarly to ours, their optic nerves connect behind the retina, so there's no need for a blind spot. The spine. One of the key moments in human evolution was when we became bipedal, and we did it incredibly fast by evolutionary standards. In just 500,000 years, we went from climbing trees and walking on all fours in the forest to walking upright over long distances. This rapid adaptation allowed us to survive some of the most drastic climate changes during the age of mammals. However, evolving to bipedalism so quickly left some parts of our anatomy as engineering disasters, particularly our spines. You see, The human family descended from animals whose spines were highly specialized for climbing trees, meaning our ancestors had short, rigid spines to prevent their bodies from swaying too much while climbing. When we left the trees, our spines had to adapt in a very short amount of time, and it was quite the engineering challenge, especially since our heads became progressively larger and heavier as our brains grew. Imagine trying to balance the weight of a human head on a tower of teacups. That's what our spine has to do. To compensate, the spine became longer, more flexible, and developed its characteristic S shape. This helped us move better on 2 feet, but it also left many weak points throughout the spine. For example, the T8 vertebra practically supports the entire weight of the body, and if you look at medical records, it's the vertebra that fractures or gets injured the most. When it can no longer bear the weight, the burden shifts to the T12 and L1 vertebrae, causing our backs to curve. This is why older people tend to walk a bit hunched over. Similarly, humans are particularly vulnerable to wear and tear on the discs that separate each vertebra, which is why as we age, our backs hurt more, and we get more aches in this area. Being human is truly a pain in the back. Hey, if your back has ever hurt, you've got to like and subscribe. Plica semilunaris. Did you know that many creatures have a third eyelid? That's right. They have an upper eyelid, a lower eyelid, and take a look at this. As we saw, there's a semi-transparent third eyelid that moves from side to side instead of up and down. This is called a nictitating membrane or third eyelid in many species. Many animals use it to refresh their eyes without fully closing them, allowing them to stay alert, while some birds use it to protect their eyes from the wind as they fly. And here's the interesting part. Humans actually have a remnant of this third eyelid known as the plica semilunaris, which is that little piece of pink skin in the corner of your eye. Look in the mirror and check the corner of your eye closest to your nose. You'll find the remnant of your third eyelid right there. Obviously, it no longer serves any purpose in humans and is just an evolutionary leftover at this point. However, it can sometimes cause a particularly unsettling condition called pterygium, also known as surfer's eye, where a fleshy growth starts from the remnant of the third eyelid and spreads across the white part of the eye. Ugh, still gives me the creeps to see it. But it's not that serious. It usually doesn't cause permanent damage to the eye and can be treated fairly easily today. Scientists aren't entirely sure why this happens, but they suspect that overexposure to ultraviolet light can cause unwanted growths in the remnant of the third eyelid, though it's quite rare. Auricular muscles. Dogs and cats, and actually many other mammals, can move their ears to direct them toward a sound they hear, which helps them locate noises more effectively without having to move their entire head. Humans, of course, don't have this ability. Our ears are fixed in place, and if we want to hear better, we have to turn our whole head. But did you know that we still have the same auricular muscles as other mammals? Yep, we've got them. It's just that they're extremely atrophied and can't move our ears like dogs and cats do. But that doesn't mean they can't move at all. Some people, like the girl we see here, can move their ears slightly using those muscles. It's just that in humans, ear movement has become a vestigial trait from our mammalian past. Can you imagine if humans could still move their ears like dogs do? Flat feet. This is a particularly terrible design flaw in the human body because we actually evolved a clever way to overcome it. It's just that some people, for one reason or another, didn't acquire the necessary evolution and ended up with a significant issue that most people don't have. This is the unusual case of flat feet. You see, our feet consist of a complex structure of bones, ligaments, and muscles that come together to form an upward arch on the sole. This arch allows us to better distribute energy and the load of each step, so walking long distances doesn't require as much effort. It also helps carry more weight and facilitates bipedal locomotion. However, some people have a reduced arch or even a completely absent one, which means the entire sole of the foot touches the ground when walking or standing, making these activities more painful than they should be. It can be a hereditary and congenital condition, meaning you simply are born without the arch structures, but it can also be something acquired during development since all babies and toddlers are born with flat feet, and the arch forms over time. There are cases where it never fully develops, leading to flat feet in adulthood. Additionally, it can result from injuries. For example, if the posterior tibial tendon becomes inflamed, weakened, or injured, the arch can collapse, resulting in flat feet. Now, having or developing this trait isn't the end of the world. You can live a full life without it significantly affecting your quality of life. However, it will cause you more frequent and intense foot pain compared to others, and standing for long periods can be exhausting. And you might wonder, how do I know all this? Well, I suffer from flat feet. Evolution, you've betrayed me. Pelvis. What happens when our most important biological adaptation makes childbirth very difficult? Well, it means you hurt your mother. How inconsiderate. She gave you life, and you're causing her pain. Just kidding, but it's true. You see, humans are one of the mammals that have the hardest time giving birth. In fact, we are the only mammal species for which childbirth is a terribly painful experience. In other species, the process may cause some discomfort, but nothing compared to the monstrous pain that women feel when giving birth. This is because, to have the level of intelligence we do, it's necessary to have a very large head. At the same time, to walk efficiently on 2 feet, it's essential to have a significantly narrower pelvis. And that's a recipe for disaster when it comes to childbirth, as the baby's head can get stuck in the birth canal. Moreover, before modern medicine, it was so dangerous that many cultures had to adapt to the fact that many women or babies would die during childbirth. For example, for the Aztecs, a warrior culture, dying in childbirth was as glorious a fate as dying in battle. And there was a separate underworld for women who passed away while giving birth. This difficulty also forced our species to have extremely prolonged childhoods, because to make our births feasible, we are born very small and defenseless. Otherwise, childbirth would simply be impossible. So we adapted to caring for babies that would be ridiculously defenseless in any other species. Sinuses. Have you ever felt significant nasal congestion and a persistent, annoying headache in your forehead, just above your nose? Oh, believe me, I've experienced that, and it's awful. If that's the case, let me tell you that you had sinusitis, and we've all been victims of the poor design of human sinuses. These are air-filled cavities located in the bones of the skull and face around the nose. There are 4 pairs of sinuses, and each is lined with a mucous membrane that produces mucus. Their main function is to humidify and warm the air we inhale before it reaches the lungs, so our lung cells don't have to deal with cold, dry air that could harm them. Additionally, these cavities trap dust and potential pathogens to prevent them from reaching our lungs. Undeniably, it's a remarkably ingenious adaptation. It's just that in humans, it was poorly implemented because the drainage system of these cavities is a mess. In our skulls, there are tubes that are supposed to carry any fluid from the cavities to the nose, allowing you to just blow your nose a bit to relieve pressure when too much mucus accumulates, which happens when we have the flu, pollen allergies, or when there's too much dust in the air. In other animals, this drainage system is positioned at the bottom of the cavities, so gravity helps clear them if they fill up. However, in humans, due to the positional change of our skulls as we evolved to walk on 2 feet, the drainage ended up at the top of the cavities, meaning they often fill up too much before they can drain, leading to complications like sinusitis. Now, if you feel these discomforts, remember that due to the placement of the ducts between the nose and the sinuses, when you lie down, they get blocked, making you feel even worse. So a good tip, if you have sinusitis, is to avoid lying down while decongestants take effect. Achilles' heel. In Greek mythology, Achilles became invulnerable because his mother dipped him completely in the river Styx, but she held him by the heel, so that part didn't get submerged, and thus became the Greek hero's weak point. It was a wound in that spot that led him to Hades. As it turns out, the heel wasn't just a weak point for the Greek hero. In general, human heels are particularly vulnerable. This is because all our locomotion revolves around the Achilles tendon. When we walk, all the force from the leg goes directly to this tendon, which acts like a rubber band, returning the force we apply with the leg so we can take the next step. If something happens to that tendon, walking becomes nearly impossible. And the sad part is that there's no other supporting tendon that can do the job. So if something serious happens, you'll have to use a cane for the rest of your life. Moreover, a simple blow to this area can easily throw you off balance. So the weak point of the most classic hero of all time is, in fact, the weak point of all humanity. It's poetic if you think about it. Knees. At some point in your life, out of nowhere, you've likely felt a pain or discomfort in one of your knees. And if that's not the case yet, just wait a couple of years. I can assure you that they will hurt in the future. Now, I'm not saying this because I know you personally or because I'm a psychic. It's just that knees are so poorly designed that it's nearly impossible to go through life without experiencing some pain or discomfort in them. There are several reasons for this, but the main one is that the entire weight of our bodies is usually supported by a single set of ligaments that are actually designed to support only half of our body weight. These are the anterior and posterior cruciate ligaments, and if they sound familiar, it's because it's quite common for athletes to get injured in them, precisely because they aren't as strong as they should be. But why this design flaw? Well, this is because humans evolved from quadrupedal animals that supported the weight of their bodies on 4 legs. So when we started walking on 2 legs, we ended up with ligaments that were only designed to support half the weight, since there were supposed to be 2 other support points for the other half, which we lost when we became bipedal. The thing is that humans evolved bipedalism very quickly, in just 500,000 years, which means there wasn't enough evolutionary time for the knees to fully perfect themselves. Now, this doesn't mean that human knees are a total failure. They work quite well despite being a last-minute adaptation. However, it does mean that there If you talk while eating, you're genuinely at risk of choking, just as you are if you laugh while swallowing food or drink. Seriously, the old advice about not talking with your mouth full isn't just your grandma being strict, it's about your safety. Other animals, like snakes, have evolved entirely separate tubes for their respiratory systems, but in most vertebrates, including us, there is always a risk of choking. Just in case you need it, here's the Heimlich maneuver. If you see someone choking on food, stand behind them and place your hands between their ribs and belly button. Make a fist with one hand and grasp it with the other, applying pressure several times to expel the food. If you're alone and choking, find a table or a chair and press down right at the point between your ribs and belly button as shown here. Vitamin C. Pirates and ancient sailors suffered from scurvy. Nowadays, we know that rather than a contagious disease, it's actually the result of a deadly deficiency of vitamin C in the diet, which affected sailors back then, given that they had terrible diets consisting mainly of hardtack, a rock-hard, flavorless biscuit made of flour and salt, with no nutritional value beyond a few calories to keep them alive. Now, you might think this is just a consequence of a bad diet, but it's actually a weakness in humanity, and it's interesting because humans, along with primates and some fish, are among the few animals that cannot produce vitamin C directly in our bodies. Instead, we have to obtain it entirely from our food. Cats, dogs, and most other vertebrates can produce all the vitamin C they need without eating anything that contains it. What's strange is that nearly all vertebrates, including humans, have a gene that allows us to create vitamin C in our bodies, but this gene is completely inactive in us. So, despite having the genetic machinery necessary to make our own vitamins, we can't turn it on. Now, it's believed that this is a consequence of our ancestors primarily eating fruits, which are very high in vitamin C. Over time, their bodies adapted to stop producing it since their diets provided enough. So to avoid excess, the gene that produced it eventually became deactivated. So yes, it wouldn't hurt to include a bit more citrus in your diet. Uric acid. My grandma always warned me not to eat too much meat because it could lead to gout, and I always thought she was exaggerating until I learned about this strange weakness of our species. Humans are among the only mammals in the world that cannot metabolize uric acid, causing it to accumulate in our bodies over time. The issue is that when critical levels of this substance build up, thousands of tiny, sharp uric acid crystals form, which is what you're seeing on the screen right now. These are as sharp as they look and can harm cells, leading to a very painful condition known as gout. And no, we're not going to show you pictures of what the body looks like when suffering from gout because it's quite unpleasant. The fact is that humans and some of our primate relatives are the only ones who don't metabolize uric acid, and thus we're the only ones who suffer from this disease. Now, scientists aren't entirely sure why this happens, but there are interesting theories suggesting that higher levels of uric acid in the body reduce the risk of neurodegenerative diseases, which could have allowed humans to develop more complex neural processes. Other theories suggest it may have been an adaptation to maintain stable blood pressure during periods when dietary salt was low. Lastly, uric acid gives meat a bad taste, so it may have served as an adaptation to make us less appetizing to predators. Fainting from fear. Did you know that humans are the only animals in the world that can faint from fear? Yes, that's right. Among all the unique characteristics in the animal kingdom, we've got the one that makes us faint when we feel extreme fear. I know. It feels like evolution played a trick on us. But why does this happen? Well, it's all because of our disproportionately large brains. Let me explain. When we experience something intense, our survival reflex kicks in, and our blood pressure skyrockets to send blood to our brains and muscles as quickly as possible, giving us the best chance of survival. However, after that adrenaline rush, our body may try to correct the spike in blood pressure and overshoot, leading to a sudden drop in pressure. Now, this wouldn't cause fainting if it weren't for the fact that our brains demand up to 20% of all our blood. A huge amount when you consider that in most animals, the brain only receives about 1% of the body's blood. In fact, chimpanzees, our closest relatives, only have 7% of their blood in their brains. This high demand for blood in the brain means that any sudden drop in blood pressure can put us at risk of fainting. So, what causes us to faint isn't the scare itself, but rather our body's attempt to cope with the fear. Still, it's a pretty silly flaw for the species that supposedly managed to dominate the planet. I guess it's a way for the Creator to teach us a little humility. Now it's your turn. Has any of these flaws become your weak point? Share your thoughts in the comments. Here are two options that you'll surely love.